I suppose you literally could not do a show about billionaires and why some people are incredibly successful without coming onto Bill Gates. But he was another one of these people that he actually hacked into the system to get additional time. He started university, didn't finish university because he decided he was actually going to create his own business and go that way instead.
He felt that he wasn't learning, he was the smartest person there and he wasn't learning from anybody that was smarter than him. So.
But it turned out, when you speak to people about the early days of Microsoft, it was his salesmanship.
Which you don't expect with Gates, do you?
No.
I do agree he was lucky, with the industry and the timing of the industry.
And again, he's sort of a person that it's not about the money, but it is because the money's a scorecard.
There's a lot of conspiracy around Bill Gates.
And people are saying he's injecting microchips in people to track them and take over the world.
What are the key traits then about Bill Gates that differentiates him, and what sort of word would you use to describe him as part of your upcoming book?
Oi, Budge!
Budge Billionaires, a series we're doing on why the most successful amongst us thrive. And today we're talking about Bill Gates. Why Bill Gates? Dr. Darren copying. So I do apologize. I had to call you doctor. You told me that a minute.
Yes. Because he's efficient. He shortened his name from William H. Gates to Bill, which says everything.
That can't be the only reason why we're doing a bunch of billionaires on him. I suppose you literally could not do a show about billionaires and why some people are incredibly successful without coming onto Bill Gates. He was the original, billionaire that we talk about, the youngest at the time, which of course has now been succeeded by Mr. Zuckerberg and Kylie Jenner. But he was the youngest billionaire. Well, he was. He was the youngest billionaire, so we have to do a series about him. But what in particular made you want to talk about Bill Gates and why the behavioral science behind him is something that we can learn from?
He's a fascinating character. And when he was young, he was obsessive about stuff, particularly about electronics and software. Software was what got him in there. And he was so lucky that his school took the exception in the mid-60s to buy computer access time. And he and a couple of other friends at the school just obsessed over it, that they used up these $3,000 worth of access really quickly. But he's fascinating. He got banned from using it.
But he was another one of these people that he actually hacked into the system to get additional time.
Yes.
And a bit like we talked about Steve Jobs, we talked about Richard Branson with his tax evasion. He's another one of these incredibly successful people that did things that were just a little bit wide and a little bit dodgy.
Yeah, bent the rules.
But it was incredibly successful.
But yeah, he with him, when he was banned by his parents from accessing the computer because he was doing it and staying up all night and using up and hacking, and then he was so successful at the hacking they got told off, but then they got employed by somebody to test software and see if they could hack it. Then he became obsessed with reading biographies and reading those all night, and his schoolwork was suffered. So I found him fascinating because of this absolute kind of obsession that he had with stuff and adoption that we've seen in other people. They get completely engrossed with something, can focus on it.
I think he still goes on reading holidays, so we'll literally just go on holiday and just immerse himself in books and nothing else.
He's done that with his foundation, hasn't he? Like become an absolute expert in malaria.
Yeah. And
then I think with some energy stuff and polio he's still working on to eradicate that. And he just really applies himself. So interesting. There could be things from this guy that we can learn.
Yeah, and that obsession, I think, I read a story about him being beaten in an Atari game. And a month later went back and he played this guy in this Atari game and absolutely smashed him because he spent a month learning this Atari. So another one of these Budge billionaires, we talk about, he started university, didn't finish university because he decided he was actually going to create his own business and go that way instead. There seems to be a common trait among a lot of these billionaires that we've been looking at.
Yeah, so I guess what I found interesting about Gates was he came from a very sort of well-off and educated family, and so started off with the traditional path of going to university, not just any university, but Harvard, but, dropped out. And my understanding of the reasons why he dropped out was because he felt that he wasn't learning. He was the smartest person there and he wasn't learning from anybody that was smarter than him. So very interesting that he got a very high sort of opinion of his own level of intellect from a very early age.
But I listened to an interview with him, and he said he never actually dropped out. He postponed or put it on hold, and he wrote a very polite letter saying, "I'm going to try this. I'll probably fail, so please let me back in." But again, it wasn't really his idea. He was pushed and encouraged. He had a sidekick. But even though he was quite alienating to people when he was younger and didn't have a huge number of friends, even though he said he loved being part of the Boy Scouts and the camaraderie there, nobody liked him. He had this guy called Paul Allen, who I think it was him.
Not the West Ham footballer.
Might have been.
Very successful guy.
But he saw in Boston. So Paul Allen was in Boston, but not at Harvard. He was already working, I think. But they were best mates, and he saw a magazine about personal computing, which really wasn't a thing yet, but about the Altair, I think it was. And he said, "Like, this is it. You know, they've done it. We have to get involved in this now. This is our chance, and we've got to seize the moment," and kind of convinced Gates, but not entirely, because of that polite letter he wrote to Harvard saying, "Please let me back in if this fails," to work. How did he follow up with that?
This is the story where, of course, he then contacted them, said he could write a programming language. He had a programming language for it. He didn't. He then went and wrote the whole thing. And sort of just delayed things a little bit.
Bent the rules again.
Again, a little bit of rule bending, but trusted his own capability to be able to achieve that. So fascinating guy. In your research, Darren, how did he come about actually creating Microsoft? Where did that come from?
Well, it's micro computers and software.
It sounds so obvious, doesn't it? When you sort of, but I'm sure.
But it becomes that second language. You know, you think Branston is from the bloke Richard Branston. But it turns out it isn't. Let's recite a town. Anyway, but the interesting thing about it, I thought it would be software programming prowess, an obsession within that, and his absolute focus. But it turned out, when you speak to people about the early days of Microsoft, it was his salesmanship.
Which you don't expect with Gates, do you?
No. Have you found that with founders as well? They're bloody good at naturally selling stuff.
Yeah, I'd say it's probably the trait that's most common, and particularly the founders that we back. They're very, very focused on sales. They're super passionate about their business, but usually their products and their people and their clients and the problems that their solution solves for their clients. So yeah, that relentless sort of focus on sales is something that a lot of founders do typically have.
Is it a contrived, I'm a salesman, or is it absolute belief in what they've created, and you've got to be stupid if you don't get how good this is?
I think it's the latter. They've devoted their whole life to this. They put everything on the line. They genuinely believe that.
Yeah. So I was really surprised to learn that he was just on the road constantly. He was running around. It's hacking, and that story you said. He phoned up and said, "Oh, we got a software system for this brand new thing that you've invented. This PC." And I go, "Oh, great. Okay, you'll see me in 8 weeks' time." And I go, "Shit, we got to program this." And he and Paul Allen did work day and night to get it ready, and it worked first time. The bloke was amazed, and that's what kind of got them up and running.
Something we've talked about on other podcasts around these budget billionaires, and particularly into Bill Gates, he does recognize that he was in the right place at the right time. And we have to kind of acknowledge that with Bill Gates. Although incredibly successful, he would he have been successful 10 years later or 10 years earlier? Do either of you have a view on that?
Well, one of the things that sort of jumps out from the materials I've read on Gates is his ultra competitiveness. So I do agree he was lucky, with the industry and the timing of the industry. But given his work ethic, his natural curiosity, and then that sort of uber competitiveness, I do think he probably would have been successful in whatever that he decided to do. Maybe not as successful as he turned out.
Yeah, he always, that time when he wasn't allowed on the computers, he read and reverse engineered what it was that made successful or historical figures successful. And he would tell anyone that would listen, he'll be a millionaire by the age of 30. which I think he beat, didn't he? Wasn't he?
Yeah.
I think he's a billionaire by about 33.
It was something like that. Yeah, millionaire by 26.
And of course, famously became the richest man in the world for many, many years.
18.
Oh, you've done your research.
No, I just made that number up. No, it was 18.
It was 18.
Yeah, running. He might have recaptured it and lost it again after that. But yeah, 18 years running. But it's just remarkable. And again, he's sort of a person that it's not about the money, but it is because the money's a scorecard. And that's a measure of success. And like you say, that ultra competitiveness of that drive of, I've got to beat everyone and everyone else is stupid. And if they don't get stuff and I've got to prove my worth to them and beat them. Apparently his mum was quite hard on him. And his dad was, he went to a private school because his dad was a lawyer. Again, same as Brad's father, but and it was a private school, but he was one of the poorest kids at the private school. So even though he was privileged, he still had this chip on his shoulder, he calls it, of proving, he's got to work during the summer holidays and that sort of thing, and proving himself better than the others, and maybe that is one of the things that drives him.
Yeah. One of the things we talked about with all these budget billionaires is they have these key traits they carry through their life, but they also learn and change the best of them over time. And what's interesting about, of course, Bill Gates is he went through sort of the 80s and 90s, became this ultra billionaire, stepped away from Microsoft a little bit, but then with Warren Buffett, of course, pledged to give away virtually the entire wealth. So, and I think there's been 150 or 200 other billionaires now have signed up to this where they're giving away their wealth for philanthropy. And now Bill Gates is associated with
Who is this philanthropy?
He's wealthy. He's got loads of money now. Yeah. So for all of course, he's most associated with Microsoft. These days, he's becoming increasingly associated with the good work that he does. And of course, when you look at him as somebody that predicts the future, he was the guy 15, 20 years ago telling us that one day we'll have a pandemic. We're not ready. And we've all gone back and watched those videos of him going, there's a pandemic coming, and everyone just kind of laughing at him. But do we think, I sort of find that we don't give him enough credit for his philanthropic work. And there's this real online thing that he is not, there's a lot of conspiracy around Bill Gates, which is quite strange because I think of the approach to the fact that a lot of his philanthropic work is targeted at disease, malaria, polio, that sort of thing, and vaccinations. That somehow he's been caught up in this world of conspiracy theories, but he probably doesn't get the credit that he deserves for what he's achieved.
Have you heard of any of these conspiracies around him? No, it's weird. So he's got this massive program of injection in mostly West Africa to protect against
the microchips.
Malaria, and people are saying he's injecting microchips in people to track them and take over the world and what have you. Which you might be right. It sounds credible to me. But yeah, it seems so sad to me. That's what I felt when I heard it. I thought this bloke has made all this money, and instead of wallowing in it himself, he's actually trying to make a difference, a positive difference, not going to Mars.
Difference too. Not going to Mars or saying things he can't achieve, but actually going obsessively after how do I eradicate polio, how do I eradicate malaria.
And he's getting knocked for it massively. There's all these pictures of him as a devil and that sort of thing.
Behaviour, mate, is that something hard to take? This guy is obsessive. He's one of the most successful people on the planet. Yet there must be part of him which struggles with the fact that he is massively disliked by so many people because of these conspiracies.
Yeah. I'm trying to work out if it's simple fact that he looks geeky. And everyone's always been taken by he looks a meek little geek, and he's hyper competitive, obsessive, hardcore individual that just, wants to crush the competition and spending years building that reputation. And he always had the objective of being a monopoly. So in 1998, I think it was when the US government took him to court for, the monopolistic ways of acting, it was hard for him to defend it. And then suddenly you're doing really lovely things. And people think, hang on a minute, there's something weird here. And also people are suspicious and jealous and what have you of success. And they'll fill in any gap with why would somebody do that?
Why would someone do good things?
Yeah, particularly if he was doing stuff that was focused on American kids, then perhaps it wouldn't have been so severe. But he's doing it for people a long way overseas, darkest Africa, and that people don't it's become suspicious. And again, I think it's unfair, but it's partially his fault, I think, for his personality that he cultivated over 30 years before that.
Interestingly, on the disease, malaria stuff, he famously released mosquitoes into a TED talk about 10, 15 years ago. And with literally this remit that, it was a room full of very wealthy people that were sitting there watching him. If people in Africa have to be surrounded by mosquitoes, then these people could be. None of them were diseased. We should add that. They were disease-ridden mosquitoes.
Did he really?
He did, yeah.
Did he tell them and all these people?
Darren, this is part of our Budge Billionaire's behavioural science behind why certain people have certain behaviours that make them so successful and thrive. What are the key traits then about Bill Gates that differentiates him, and what sort of word would you use to describe him as part of your upcoming book?
Yeah, risk-taking, adaptability, absolute focus. He said that I probably got ADHD as well, this ability to focus, but hyperactive sometimes. But there was one word, this is easy, one word to describe him from us is he's used one word over and over himself, which was the title of, it might have been an autobiography, which is hardcore.
Which is so strange, isn't it? When you think of the man, he doesn't really come across as that hardcore.
It doesn't look very hard, does it?
Yeah, exactly.
Covered in tattoos, riding a Harley Davidson.
But yeah, and he describes it as it encapsulates his mindset, his work ethic, his approach. Commonly apparently work 36 hours straight, fall asleep at a desk or under a desk, eat pizza and chocolate. He can cut out all distractions. He's happy to have no
That is
media,
ADHD, isn't
TV.
it? Focus.
Sorry,
Focus.
I've lost what I was talking about.
Yeah.
Hiring and building a culture around intensity and performance. So he expected it in others around him. And what else did I write? Pursuing not just success, but dominance. Actually, that was a real difference I noticed. So, have you been dominating much?
I was going to say, if Bill Gates was a sports person, he definitely would have been Michael Jordan. So that need to dominate the competition and to win at all costs was very sort of similar.
Or Liverpool in this environment. I'm just going to add that.
Yeah, lost Plymouth. Sorry. Is Michael Jordan like that? I've never really paid attention.
Have you not seen the Netflix series The Last Dance?
No.
Very like that. Very, win at all costs.
I thought it was about dancing.
Yeah.
I thought it was Patrick Swayze.
Strictly Michael Douglas.
Starring Patrick Swayze as Michael Jordan, not Michael Douglas.
Michael Douglas is rubbish at basketball time.
Anyway, I presume it's about his absolute focus.
It's about his pursuit of all the titles that he won and how he dragged his team along with him. And was in some seasons almost a one-man team.
Maybe subject for a future podcast. Cool.
This is Budge Billionaires. Make sure you check us out on YouTube, Spotify, and watch the next episode,
which is up here. It will be exactly over your face using that camera.